leaving the mansion that night with expensive suitcases and promises to call, though Alexander knew she never would. And while the world believed the billionaire's life had collapsed into ruins, the mansion slowly emptied as staff members left for new jobs, luxury cars were repossessed, and auctioneers cataloged priceless artwork for sale until only a few loyal employees remained, including Maya, who shocked Alexander by refusing to leave even when he explained he could barely pay salaries anymore, insisting she would stay temporarily without pay until he figured things out. Because, as she said with quiet determination, no one deserves to face hard times alone. And those words struck Alexander harder than any business loss ever could, because in that moment he realized that the quiet maid who society barely acknowledged possessed a strength of character far greater than the elite circles he once trusted. Yet the story took another unexpected turn when Alexander decided to push the test even further, selling the mansion and moving into a small rented apartment in Brooklyn where he pretended to search for ordinary jobs, something he had never done since becoming a billionaire. And to his amazement, Maya offered to help him navigate the world outside luxury, guiding him through subway rides, grocery shopping on a budget, and job applications that rejected him because employers assumed a former billionaire couldn't survive regular work. During those weeks, Alexander experienced a life he had never truly known, standing in long lines, worrying about rent, feeling invisible in crowds. And through it all, Maya remained by his side, not out of obligation, but genuine friendship, sharing stories of her childhood struggles and her belief that a person's worth had nothing to do with wealth. And slowly, Alexander found himself laughing again, discovering a strange sense of freedom and anonymity, while also developing deep admiration for the woman who had sacrificed her own stability to support someone she barely knew. Yet just when he believed the test had revealed everything, fate delivered a twist he never expected. Because one afternoon, Maya disappeared without explanation, leaving only a short note, thanking him for the opportunity to work with him and wishing him strength for the future. And though Alexander tried to contact her, he discovered the phone number she had given the household years earlier was no longer active, leaving him with a sudden emptiness he couldn't explain. Days passed with no sign of her until Alexander finally decided the test had gone far enough, revealing his true financial status to the world and reclaiming control of his company through a strategic maneuver his lawyer had prepared from the beginning. Headlines erupted again as Kingston Technologies miraculously recovered, and the billionaire returned stronger than ever. Yet despite regaining everything, Alexander felt strangely hollow, because the one person whose loyalty mattered most was gone. And determined to find her, he launched a private search using his resources, eventually discovering a shocking truth that changed everything. Maya had not simply been a maid, but a university graduate who had secretly taken the job under a false resume after her family fell into debt from medical bills, hiding her education because employers in elite households often rejected overqualified applicants. And when Alexander finally tracked her down months later in a small community center where she volunteered teaching financial literacy to struggling families, he confronted her gently, asking why she disappeared without saying goodbye. And Maya admitted she had developed feelings for him during their time in Brooklyn, but believed those feelings were inappropriate because of the enormous difference in their social worlds, especially once she suspected his financial collapse might not be entirely real due to small clues she noticed, but never confronted him about. And hearing this confession stunned Alexander because it revealed that Maya's loyalty had existed even while she suspected the entire situation might be a test. Yet she stayed anyway simply because she believed he needed someone. And in that moment, Alexander realized the greatest twist of all. The woman he once considered invisible had understood him better than anyone else in his life. And as they stood together in the modest community center, surrounded by children laughing and families learning to manage their finances, Alexander felt a clarity he had never experienced in boardrooms or luxury galas, finally understanding that love built on empathy, resilience, and shared humanity was far more valuable than admiration built on wealth. So, months later, when the world again turned its attention to Alexander Kingston, it wasn't because of another billion-dollar deal or a glamorous socialite wedding, but because the billionaire publicly announced his engagement to Maya Carter, the former maid whose compassion had revealed the truth hidden behind luxury. And while society buzzed with gossip and disbelief, Alexander simply smiled, knowing that losing everything, if only for a short time, had allowed him to find the one thing money could never buy: a love proven not in wealth, but in the moment when there was nothing left to gain. In the heart of New York City lived a man whose name appeared on magazine covers, business headlines, and billionaire rankings almost every year. Alexander Kingston, a self-made tech mogul whose company had revolutionized financial security software and earned him a fortune so vast that people joked he could buy small countries if he wanted to. Yet, despite the luxury penthouses, private jets, and elite parties, Alexander was haunted by one quiet fear that money could never solve. The fear that nobody around him truly loved him for who he was rather than what he owned. And this fear grew stronger as his wedding date approached with his glamorous fiancée, Victoria Langford, a stunning socialite who had quickly captured the admiration of Manhattan's high society. Yet Alexander could never ignore the subtle moments when her eyes lingered a little too long on expensive jewelry displays, when her excitement about their future seemed tied more to his wealth than to him. And though she always spoke sweetly and played the role of the perfect partner in public, something in Alexander's instincts whispered that the foundation of their relationship might be built on something fragile. So after weeks of sleepless nights, he made a decision so drastic that even his closest business partner tried to talk him out of it. Alexander would fake the collapse of his empire and pretend to lose everything. Every dollar, every asset, every piece of luxury, to see who would remain beside him. When the money disappeared, and with the help of a trusted lawyer and a carefully crafted series of financial announcements, the news exploded across business networks one morning like a bombshell. Kingston Technologies had suffered catastrophic losses, investors had pulled out, lawsuits were piling up, and the once unstoppable billionaire was suddenly drowning in debt. The world watched with fascination as Alexander publicly resigned from his own company while rumors of bankruptcy spread across the internet like wildfire. And inside his mansion, the reaction from Victoria was immediate and chilling, because the woman who once planned extravagant wedding parties suddenly grew distant, her warm laughter replaced by cold silence as she paced the marble floors asking questions not about how Alexander felt, but about whether the rumors were true, whether the penthouse would be sold, whether the private jet was gone, whether their wedding should be postponed until things stabilized. And though Alexander tried to appear defeated and ashamed, deep inside, he was carefully observing every word, every glance, every shift in her behavior, while one person in the mansion watched everything quietly from the background. The maid, a young black woman named Maya Carter, who had worked in the household for nearly 2 years, rarely speaking unless spoken to, always polite, always invisible to the wealthy guests who passed through the home like they owned the world. Maya had grown up in a struggling neighborhood in Detroit and had taken the job in New York to support her younger brother's college dreams. And though Alexander had exchanged only brief conversations with her over the years, he had noticed her kindness in small moments, like how she left warm tea outside his office during late nights, or how she comforted the gardener when his wife fell ill. Yet in the chaos of his collapsing fortune, Maya became one of the few people who seemed genuinely concerned about Alexander, himself rather than his money. Because while Victoria spent hours on the phone whispering with friends about escape plans and financial security, Maya quietly approached Alexander one evening in the kitchen and asked if he had eaten anything that day, her voice filled with sincere worry rather than curiosity. And when Alexander admitted he had lost his appetite, she simply cooked him a simple homemade meal and said softly that sometimes life breaks people down before building them back stronger. Words that lingered in Alexander's mind long after she returned to her work. But the real shock came days later when Victoria revealed her true intentions without realizing Alexander was listening from the hallway as she spoke to a friend on speakerphone, her voice dripping with frustration as she complained that she hadn't signed a prenuptial agreement yet, and now she might end up married to a financial disaster. And hearing the woman he planned to spend his life with describe him like a failed investment shattered something inside him. Yet he forced himself to continue the test, pretending ignorance as Victoria gradually distanced herself until finally one evening she sat across from him with carefully rehearsed sympathy and announced she needed space to reconsider their future, leaving the mansion that night with